New top 100 list is live at justbaseball.com, and that means myself, Aram Layton, and Jack McMullen are going to walk you through prospects 20 to 11 today. Of course, you can find the whole list at justbaseball.com or linked in the episode description. We're going to do the top 20 prospects in depth here, so then the next episode will be 10 to 1, but we'll also be doing different things, biggest risers, some fallers, and other conversations around the whole list. But I'm very excited to break down the top 20. Maybe we'll quickly touch on a couple that were just outside of the top 20 because 21 is Andrew Peña, and you always got to talk about him. But yeah, this is the last update of 2025, man, and I'm excited to get rolling into 26. But this was a fun way to kind of wind it down and put out the last update of the year.
What a year it was, man. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, but you know what? We have 100 prospects here. Yeah, so our content plan is 20 to 11 on this episode. I believe tomorrow we're doing 10 to 1. On Thursday, we're doing biggest risers and biggest fallers. And then on Friday, we're doing newcomers. And of course, people are listening to this, I believe, after your top 100 Q&A that is on YouTube on Monday. Yep. So we're recording before it, but this is airing after it. You did a heck of a job on that top 100 Q&A, man.
I hope I did.
Round of applause to you.
Catastrophically, Brockmeyer style, then this would not age very well. But no, I'm looking forward to that. And if you missed that, you can go back and watch it. That's why we live stream it. I know you don't get your question in, but you can watch. And if you didn't get your question in, you can join our Discord, which is linked in the episode description. And you can get your questions in whenever. I'm at your beck and call to answer your questions, whether we just dropped the top 100 list or it's the middle of the offseason, nothing's happened for a while, and you just want to ask me about your team's number 12 prospect or whatever it may be. But let's get into the overall number 20 prospect here. And I will say, just outside of the top 20, you had Andrew Peña at 21, and you had George Lombard, I believe, at 22.
Yes.
But it brings us to Josue De Paula. Peña, look, you could put Peña anywhere, and I'd say okay. And that's just kind of where we're at with him right now, right? And I think I just want to start with that real quick. Like, there's no world where I think you could be like too high, or I think you could be too low. But I just think anywhere in the top quarter of the top 100 is reasonable, given that it wasn't the best year for Peña. He hadn't thrown in multiple years, essentially, in a regular game setting. He's still young. He still has all this potential, but the stuff was a little subdued. It was a AAA ball. He was making his return from injury after all that time, and now throwing with a new ball. A lot of moving parts here. I don't think I'm really going to make any major sweeping assessments or anything until next season. And if it's more of the same challenges, then yeah, we'll have a conversation then, but I tend to believe it won't, and he's going to rise very quickly.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like, if you were to play a game of start, bench, cut, the conversation is better, more in depth. If you were to do it like Peña, Thomas White, Bubba Chandler, which is the clump that we're going to talk about all three of those guys. But then as you like work your way down the list, you know, the question, it gets easier to just say, oh, well, I start Peña. If you look in the mid 30s of this list and you're saying, okay, start, bench, cut, Peña, Harleen, Susana, Jonah Tong. Like, you know which one you're choosing right away. And it gets a little bit murkier, but I still feel like it's a clear-cut Peña when you say, okay, start, bench, cut, Peña, Luis Morales, and Kate Anderson. Like, you're picking Peña. So this push to the point at 21 where you feel comfortable saying, okay, you stack up well against the other pitchers in your clump here.
Yeah, and I'll make the case, you know, because I know we got a question in the Discord about, like, you know, the weighing of Peña versus Thomas White, and so we'll talk about that when we get there.
Cool.
Number 20 is Josue De Paula, and he's, you know, in a strong spot, obviously, but, you know, I think he's also a guy that, if you asked me at the start of the year, I would have probably said, based on graduations and what I think he's going to do, that he finishes the year in the top 10. Now, that's not to say he had a disappointing year, because he's in the top 20 overall prospects here. But the Dodgers prospect is struggling to stay on the field a little bit. Like, that is becoming a bit of a trend for De Paula, right? I think when you look at, you know, the last couple of years, he's still playing. It's not egregious. We're not talking about Manuel Rodriguez territory, but this is a player where there's clear defensive questions, and he's losing out on some of those reps. and just not really getting the opportunity to really prove that he can be that solid corner outfielder. He has made himself a little bit more mobile. I think you've seen that in the stolen base department, things like that. The bat, I don't think there's any questioning the approach, the feel to hit, the raw power, but it's also still a matter of, okay, when is that above average exit velocity going to start to translate into above average game power?
Yeah.
Well, also when I think he's on the field more consistently too. All things considered, though, gets up to AA at the end of the year. He did struggle, but again, I think he was kind of banged up at the end of the season. Had a bad stretch, really did well in the final like 10 games of triple or of high A, and then got that bump up to AA and kind of struggled again. So health just seems to be the biggest thing here because it's restricting us from getting the full clear idea of the other aspects of De Paula's game, which is the defense and the game power. I have a lot more confidence in the game power shining through. I think it will. He's still just 20 years old, but it's going to need to because he's going to be a subpar defender most likely in the corner, or you can't totally rule out first base.
If this math makes sense to you, let me know, because I feel like this could be isolating, but I'm going to try and explain this as best I can. In 2024, he played 107 games. In 2025, he played 102 games. Now, you take that into account, low A, high A, and a brief stint in double A that did not go well whatsoever. It's like an 800 OPS in those games. Now, 107 and 102, it's not like your eyebrows are raising when you look at those individual season game totals. But then you take a step back and you say, this guy has played 209 games in 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's not a lot. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does.
Okay.
Because it's like, you'd almost rather have the same number, but he played 60 games 1 year and then played a full season the next year.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
then it's less of a trend. And here we are again. He was supposed to play in the fall league and it didn't happen. Why? I think it was a hamstring thing, maybe. I'm not positive, but it doesn't really matter. He didn't play. And even if you're erring on the side of caution, you have to err on the side of caution with him right now because that seems to be the case.
And I understand from the Dodger perspective saying, oh, well, he already played 100 games this year. Yeah, well, he's only played 209 over the last two. So, it's just, I understand why it doesn't compute on a season-by-season basis, but in terms of establishing a trend, it absolutely computes.
And so that's the big thing here, right? Because, I think you look at what he can do, and I think it's just the lack of losing some reps. Because even when he's been back playing, there's been stretches where he's DHing a little bit more because they want to preserve him on the field. So he's being run through the DH spot once or twice a week, and he's already only playing 100 games, so you're not getting as many outfield reps. I'm so excited about what he can be. It's one of my favorite, I would say overall operations. He starts the load early. It's in rhythm. I love the way he gets into his backside. It's a really smooth swing. I think he could, get a little bit more depth in the path, but overall, I think the path is pretty darn solid. You started to see him elevate a little bit more this year, which was encouraging. You started to see his legs at least become a little bit more of a factor. And the approach just continues to be elite. It was a 15% chase rate this year. So there is so much to like. He also was a reverse splits guy, which is kind of wild. 975 OPS left on left versus a 711 OPS against righty. So that is something to just monitor. I don't know what the explanation for that necessarily would be, other than just struggling with more gyro sliders and changeups, most stuff like kind of diving downwards. So that's kind of ties back into the barrel depth point. But he was 19 years old at the start of last year. He's going to be 20 years old at the start of this coming season. And he's got a lot of time, even in double A, to kind of sort through things, but got to play some more games. And I think got to tap into that game power a little bit more. And you got to hit righties a little bit better than that. You don't want to be a reverse splits guy as a left-handed hitting corner outfielder who's, bat first.
And it's an interesting reversal because in 2024, between low A and high A, he was righty pitching dominant, right? It was an 829 OPS versus a 742 OPS left on left. So he was better against right-handed pitching than he was left-handed pitching in 24, but that reversed in 25. I wonder if that was just okay, this year I see this pitch worse, I see this pitch better type thing. I'd be curious to see what 26 looks like, but 9 of his 10 homers came against right-handed pitching in 24, and then things changed a little bit in 25.
It's really interesting because, when you look at the numbers, he just seemed to struggle with right-handed secondaries a little bit this year. He's like 513 OPS against non-fastballs, from righties, whereas against lefties, he had an 827 OPS against left-on-left secondaries. Like, that's
And
pretty
you know what
damn
that could be? Like, how many good righty changeups and splits did he see in low A? He spent half the 24
Yeah.
season in low A. So maybe he was only seeing righty fastballs in low A. It might have been a
Yeah.
personnel thing.
And he's getting pitched to more carefully, right? This is a guy hitting in the 2-hole in most of the year, and he's kind of the guy that you've got circled. So I'm excited. I'm not worried about that really at all. He's going to build on that. But again, just all goes back to the reps. And then the defensive side of things, if he can just get to being an average defender out there, it'll take some pressure off the bat. But it was nice to see the stolen base thing, become a little bit of a part of his game too and provide some value there.
Yep.
Number 19 is his teammate. And, I'm seeing some jump off of the Zyhir Hope train a little bit here. I get it. I do. Like, I understand that it's a volatile profile, but I also want to make sure that we're not forgetting that this guy has some of the most outrageous power that you got in the minor leagues, and he's 20 years old, and he missed out on a lot of reps the last 2 years before that. So this was a somewhat aggressive, challenge for him to get to high A. After, remember, last year for Hope, he had played only at low A, and he missed half the season due to injury. Then he went to the AFL and did what we saw out there, which was amazing. But this year was not only his first year at high A, it was really his first full minor league season because of the games that he missed last year. So there was a bit of an acclimation process to high A. He still turned in really good numbers. He still kept the strikeout rate within reason. And then he got a taste of double A at the end of the year where he actually looked pretty good. And I think given how much he was struggling at points, he had some dry spells where he was just K'ing a lot. To have those 8 double A games when you add in the 2 postseason games where he actually only struck out 5 times to 18% strikeout rate, had an 850 OPS, and added 4 doubles in those 8 games. I think that's really encouraging for a guy that had some whiff issues in high A to not get his doors blown off even in a small sample. So I've talked about it a lot with him. He counter rotates too much. It was never really an issue for him because he's such a freak athlete and so explosive. But now with the game plans and stuff like that, you're going to see, righties, maybe hard cutters in on you when they know that it's going to be hard to get the barrel out, fastballs up and in. They're going to try to get you then sped up and then go away from you. And those are the things that challenged him at times. You got to imagine counter rotating, meaning like the chest is kind of turning more towards the catcher. If you're trying to get the barrel out then to an elevated fastball, it's going to be hard. But
you have a lot of work to do. Yeah.
It's a lot of work. You got to work really uphill. He's such a freak that if he cleans that up a little bit, I think you're going to see him be really, really productive. Nonetheless, 90th percentile exit velocity of 109.3 miles per hour this year. It's one of the best figures in the minor leagues. Chase rate at 22%. Yes, there's whiff, but he struck out 26% of the time. It's palatable. It's a 74% zone contact rate. Again, that could get a little bit better, but it's not disastrous or egregious, especially when I think that there's mechanics that could be adjusted ever so slightly to make all the difference that you need.
You've seen plenty of people cool on him. I don't want to say plenty, but you've seen some people cool on him. If you don't have his numbers in front of you, what do you think the WRC plus was this year?
I actually don't know what the WRC plus was.
So like people are cooling. The industry as a whole might be cooling a little bit on Zyhir Hope. What does that mean in his age 20 season in high A and 6 games in double A by WRC plus?
It's got to be close to one. I would say above 125.
It's 132.
Yeah.
If people are going to cool on him, I will absolutely buy some baseball cards.
You probably should, honestly. I actually just got, where'd I put it? I just sent it in the Discord. I actually just got one back that I pulled from grading that was out of 25 that I'm excited about.
Nice.
I think it's right here, actually. Yeah, for those on YouTube. You can see it here. I pulled that with our friends at Hit Seekers. But so here's the other reason why I can understand the cooling a little bit in terms of just the thought process as to why you're concerned. Similar things we said to Josue De Paula of, okay, well, he's going to really need to hit. I think you could say about Hope where it's okay, maybe he's not going to stick in center field. Like I was really expecting the reads to get better given how athletic he is. Like he's an above average. I think I've seen plus run times from him, and he has an above average arm. Theoretically, and I thought, okay, lack of reps, but he's you see the twitch there. Like he's going to be able to progress in the outfield. He hasn't really come along reads and routes wise the way that you'd like to see. But he has more closing speed than De Paula. I think he's a better arm. So I think if you stash him in a corner, even if the reads aren't great, his recovery speed, closing time, arm will make him, I think, an average defender, unless he just has the Chandler Simpson issue where he just can't track the ball. But I don't see it being like that. But if he's not giving you a ton of defensive value, of course, then you all of a sudden you're worried about the whiff a little bit more.
Sure.
What I liked is you saw the stolen base component to his game become more of a factor this year. He was solid with it and more efficient. And he's a little bit of a stockier guy relative to players that turned in his run times. So, there was a little bit of a question about the acceleration. And I think that's another interesting part of like the footwork, the first step. Those are things you can train a little bit more than top speed. And I think that's something that he could probably find this year. But I keep harping with him is that he hasn't played that much. I understand he's going to be 21 by next season, but he really hasn't played. He's a cold weather kid, kind of a late bloomer. And I don't know if we're looking at his situation 100% like fair compared to maybe some of the other players in terms of the reps and the archetype of player he is. Like, I think a lot of other times we're saying, oh, big swing and miss guy, but big power, like give him some time. Let's see if it all comes together, especially with a good approach. But then with Hope, I think, the whiff concern becomes a little bit more prominent for some people a little bit more quickly. The other thing that makes me encouraged about him is that he's productive against all pitch types. There's not like a clear-cut Achilles heel. He's just whiffing in general a little too much. And I think that's something that he can hone in on. But it's not like there's a specific pitch type that's bludgeoning him, right? Where he's just like, he can't compete against it. When you look at what he did against spin last year, he had an OPS of 751 against spin, but that really tapered off towards the end of the season. He was demolishing breaking balls at the start of the year. But if you have a 750 OPS against spin and hammer fastballs, you're going to be in a good spot. He had an 870 OPS against changeups. Like overall, I felt like he was doing damage against all pitch types and he was hitting tough pitchers. So I think there's a lot to like here still. There's sky high power potential when you got an EV90 of north of 109. He's got a rare power speed combination, and it's just a matter of can the defense come along. And oh, by the way, 36% ground ball rate. He's going to get into that power more.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think about how different the profile is between Zyhir Hope and Andy Pages at this point when he was 20 years old entering his age 21 season. The big difference is in his age 20 season, Andy Pages hit 31 homers in high A.
Gosh, yeah.
That's the huge difference there. But Andy Pages was also punching out. When he hit 31 homers in 21, he was punching out 25% of the time. Now, he was walking 14. Those numbers are kind of on par with where Hope is. The only difference is the home run total, but the power production, the EVs would indicate that Zyhir Hope can get to where Andy Pages was. And plenty of people were asking when he was 20 years old, can Pages stick in center or is he going to move to a corner? A lot of people loved Andy Pages. So the thing for me, like the thing that solidified Andy Pages as that guy was obviously the 31 homers. That's the only thing lacking from Hope. But you have to keep in mind, Pages repeated AA after this. And still, I know he had a really rough postseason and end of the regular season, but still going into the 26th season, we're looking at Andy Pages as one of the brightest young center fielders in Major League Baseball. Young,
and no one had him play. We talked about it. Like we thought he could play center field though, but a lot of people were saying he can't even play out there. Put him in a corner and he can play a fine corner, and maybe an above average corner. He's progressed into a great center fielder. I don't know if Hope's going to do that, but the proof is in the pudding here that the Dodgers have done a good job of developing,
of course,
toolsy players into better defenders. And I don't see why Hope can't be an example of, again, at the very least, just developing into a good corner.
Yeah. All I'm saying is he has time to go through trials and tribulations. Andy Pages was on this exact timeline where he was good in high A as a 20-year-old. And he was going into a Dodger minor league season as a 21-year-old starting his first full year in AA. And he is still one of the brightest young center fielders in the game. So even if you are just a little bit thrown off by what happened in 2025, which you shouldn't be, there's plenty of reason to believe that this guy can be really good.
Yep. I agree. And I think to that point, like he's going to get the full year in AA. If he's succeeding, you're going to really see that stock catapult. If he's striking out a little bit and battling, like he has time, to your point. Like, and I think a lot of people cooled on Pages in that stretch as well. What's funny too is Pages, when he hit 31 home runs, he did EV90 like 103, but his ground ball rate was like 25%. What's funny with Hope is it's not like he's putting the ball on the ground much. It's just that I think he could just be better at creating the angles that he wants to create more consistently for it to translate into more homers. But I really think that's going to happen. He had 31 doubles and 3 triples and then 13 homers. I think there's just a little bit more of the consistency angles wise. I think because he kind of rotates so much, sometimes that front side leaves the ball and it can kind of create this swing where it's working, uphill, and you can kind of topspin the ball at times. So it's not carrying the way that it should. So I think if he can find some more depth and have that barrel path kind of through the zone more evenly instead of swinging upwards at it at times, I think he'll find a little bit more carry and it'll translate into more homers. And these are all things that look, you're giving the Dodgers this kind of template to work with. You have a player that has a chance to really take a special leap this year. And I think this is going to be the first time where they actually make some adjustments with him. He hasn't really made any adjustments since getting into pro ball of significance, since he really hit the ground running with the Dodgers. We're going to get to number 18 here, which is Thomas White. And White is, the stuff is not really a question at all. And I know you got a chance to talk to him on the radio broadcast at some point during the season last year.
Yep.
You're probably reminded, like, he's 6'5", he walks in the room. You almost forget now he's 21 years old. He's 20 years old at the time. It's some of the best swing and miss stuff in the minor leagues, and especially from a lefty. He struck out 38% of batters this year. If you kind of sort by the final stretch of the season, the final 10 starts of the year, he struck out 40% of batters. There was really no issue missing bats. The issue was just missing the zone a little bit. And we've talked about the similarities to like Blake Snell, and how, if he can make this step or take this step forward next year in terms of execution, there's a really special upside here as a potential ace, really. If the command is kind of that final piece, because the fastball is averaging 96 miles per hour with just deception to it because of his arm action. The curveball is disgusting. And I was actually talking to some people about it. They kind of look at it, I think, as like kind of a slider. And then there's another version of the slider. So it depends who you talk to, but it sounds like it might be 2 versions of a slider. And then the changeup is a great pitch as well. So you've got a 4-pitch mix here, 3 potentially, I think 3 that are plus and a 4th quality one. And deception built in from a 6'5", 225-pound frame that I think there's more velo in there. There's just one variable. It's a big variable, but there's one variable, and it's the command.
Can I give you a comp that is harder to wrap your head around than Blake Snell? Because Snell throws with his left hand and Thomas White throws with his left hand as well. Dylan Cease, I think, is the comp that I like the most. Snell is obviously the profile of prospect that Thomas White is. Cease was probably not the profile of prospect that White is now. But Dylan Cease was a top 50 prospect in baseball by not allowing base hits, but walking guys. He jumped to a consensus top 100 prospect when he was walking 4.5 hitters per 9 when he was a young kid in high A and double A. And then he carves to a 2.4 ERA in which he's walking over 4 hitters per 9. Dylan Cease was always the one beating himself in the minor leagues, but nobody else was beating him. And we've seen plenty of guys like that. Tyler Glasnow was another guy that nobody beat him except for Tyler Glasnow in the minor leagues. And it took him 5 years in the big leagues to figure out how to not beat himself. That could be White. It also took Snell a little bit of time in the big leagues to figure out how not to beat himself. But the difference between Cease, Glasnow, and Snell as minor leaguers is Snell was one of the best prospects in baseball because he was so untouchable. Cease could still get clipped. Glasnow could still get clipped. Snell can't really. And I think White is approaching that level of Snell where it's like, you're not going to get clipped. It's just a matter of you being in there.
Opponents slugged 228 against him this year.
Which is more Snell than Cease and Glasnow.
Yeah, it's 2 homers. And 12 doubles in 395 plate appearances. They hit 173 against him. And by pitch type, 180 against the fastball, 122 against the curveball slider, whatever you want to call it, 190 against the changeup, and 250 against the slider that he throws 11% of the time, the shorter, harder one. So, good luck. And the zone whiff numbers are outrageous. The chase numbers are strong. The thing with him is that same arm action that I think makes him so difficult also makes it difficult for him at times, where I think the arm kind of lags and it's just kind of repeating that. I think he's going to find it, though. We always talk about the tall lefties as the baby giraffe like, right? And he's 6'5". He was 20 years old this year, and he had the year that he had. I think for White, when the focus clearly is going to be, like, you don't need to worry about your stuff. You don't really need to worry about your arsenal in terms of how it works off of itself. All Thomas White's really going to need to work on, aside from just preserving his body and staying healthy going through spring training, is just how can I throw more strikes? And I think that being the game plan for the Marlins, and prioritizing, their top prospect and focusing on that throughout spring training, with success stories that they've got throughout the org, the other pitchers that he can be working with there. I have a lot of confidence that he can get to a point where he's even fringy command wise. And if he's fringy command wise, he's a number 2 type of starter, at worst a number 3.
He's also an elite competitor, and you brought up the conversation that we had. I had a couple of conversations with him. One was during a game in spring training when we had him on. The other one was a podcast conversation for the Marlins in like June or July. It was around the Futures game. And he's just like, this competitive fire in him is amazing. He hopped on the Zoom in July after a side that wasn't to his standards, and it took him 2 minutes to shake how like bad it was internally, and then he turned it on and it was an amazing interview, and then he goes right back to like, I have to be better. And that fire is what everybody hunts on the mound, and he has the type of fire that screams number 2 starter in the big leagues.
Yeah, and you can always dream on more than that too when you've got the stuff in the frame that he's got.
Yeah.
Number 17, Luis Peña. Now, another player where I think he was all the talk in the first half, and then he got a little bit banged up. His teammate Jesus Mate, I think, brought in a little bit of shine too, and I felt like Peña didn't get talked about as much in the back half of the year. Again, I get it because he was banged up. Then you look at the cumulative numbers on the season because of the struggles at the end of the year and the struggles at high A. Now, when you do all your stat queries on Fangraphs, maybe he doesn't pop up as much. What Luis Peña did last year was flatly just impressive. There's no way around it. It was very impressive. Jesus Mate, what he did is just ridiculous, and that's for the next episode. But it doesn't take away from what Luis Peña did, which is add a significant amount of power, add a significant amount of versatility, I think, to his game, to where, like, I still think he's a second baseman, but he's bought himself some runway at shortstop. I think improving just the swing path, improving his pitch rec skills. Like, he's still aggressive, but I think there was clear gains in that department. The thing that stands out the most to me, and we talked about it a lot in the early going of the year on the show, is that Luis Peña was a slash and dash guy in the DSL a year ago, and by that, I mean, he was basically focused on just putting bat on ball. It was not a ton of high impact contact, and it was more just kind of hit the ball and run. He had an EV90 of 99.5 miles per hour and a hard hit rate of 27% in 2024. Just to put this in perspective here, that EV90 jumped to 104.2 miles per hour in 2025 and a hard hit rate of 40%. And this is as he's skipping the Arizona Complex League. And it was higher than that in the first half of the season. The only reason that those numbers dropped is just because he was struggling in terms of finding the barrel consistently, which is fine. He was 18, playing in low and high A. But the quality of contact at points in the first half of the season was even higher than that. If you look at his first 50 games, just to show what he has in the tank now, first 50 games of the season, he had an EV90 of 106 and a hard hit rate of 46.5%. So that just shows you how much bat speed this guy added, how much power in general he added by interacting with the ground more effectively and tapping into more just overall impact. There's even more in there still. And I think that's the exciting part. And that's why I think Peña, just like Mate, has a chance to be a star. And it's just maybe not as close as Mate already is, but it's special talent here.
It's that ground beef diet, baby. I'd be curious to know what kind of diet he was on this year as he kind of built up. But I queued up a meme because that's just how my brain functions. But after the All-Star break, it was kind of the I don't want to play with you anymore meme. And, like, that's my one gripe with the prospect industry. Like, baseball is such a what have you done for me lately game. Like, we discard good starts to a major league season very, very quickly. But in the minor leagues, it's even quicker. If you're not constantly in the conversation whenever people check in and sift through every other week or so, you're just going to fall by the wayside. And there are plenty of 20-year-olds with 815 OPS seasons that are overlooked because there are guys that are performing much better. And Peña was top of the charts for 4 months, and then for 2 months, he wasn't. So then all of a sudden, everything just kind of goes away. This guy's an elite prospect, and you've made that very clear.
I mean, he hit above 113 last year.
Yeah.
18 years old with plus speed, reaching EVs of 113 miles per hour. We're talking about, even if he moves over to second, a hitter that could be plus hit, plus power, plus speed. That's going to be an all-star if that all works out.
Yeah.
Number 16 is Walker Jenkins. We'll talk about the Twins prospect in a moment. Before that, quick break. Walker Jenkins here. So every time we put out the top 10 now, I feel like there's always a collection of people that say, like, where's Walker Jenkins? Where's Walker Jenkins? He's a very difficult player to assess, right? Because we talk about availability. This is another huge frustration, right? Where it's just, this guy is so talented. And there's some projection here too. It's a little bit similar to the De Paula conversation. The difference is he's just better, I think. So that's why he's ranked a little bit higher. But where you have, I think, a really good feel to hit, pretty advanced approach, and you're dreaming on even more power, and you're like, oh my gosh, that feel to hit and the power combination, like, that could be something special. But you still haven't seen the power fully shine through, and part of that's because he hasn't totally been available. The difference with Jenkins is his raw EVs are not as good as De Paula's. And that's the one thing that I think holds me back from putting him a little bit higher. Like, he benefits from the angles that he produces. He does a good job of pulling the ball in the air, and I think that's why he was able to hit 10 homers in 83 games this past year and another 29 extra base hits. But it's like a hard hit rate of 34%. It's an EV 90, 103. Like, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the bat to ball in that case to be able to maximize those angles. So I always refer to, like, if you're going to be a outslug the exit velocities, air pull kind of guy, usually the best versions of those types of guys are going to have high contact rates within the zone and really good swing decisions, a la Isaac Paredes. So that's where it puts even more pressure on the bat to ball, which I think is above average right now, more than plus. And we even saw a little bit more whiff, I think, creep in at times in the zone, at the AAA level. But of course, that's, a big leap for him, having missed so many reps. My biggest concern for him is just availability, because you go by the game totals with him too. He's been hurt a lot. And even when he has been hurt, it's been a challenge for him to get back. Like, a sprained ankle kept him out a lot longer than I think a sprained ankle was expected to. Some of these other injuries, and I know that they're probably erring on the side of caution, but a lot of these injuries seem to be holding him out a long time. And that is a bit of a concern for me as well, especially if a big part of his value is kind of hinged on being able to play center field.
At some point, you got to play. And, it's really unfortunate that we're having this conversation twice now in the top 20. But this is, I think, more so than Emmanuel Rodriguez, the more frustrating one, because you feel, actually, you know what? Emmanuel Rodriguez is probably
nothing frustrates me more than Emmanuel, who, by the way, is torching the Winter League.
Is he?
Yeah.
Dude, come on. And I'm rooting for him. You know what? Like, I'm not frustrated that he's torching. I'm frustrated that, like, okay, it's happening right now when it's not really pushing him towards an eventual big league call-up.
Yeah.
But, like, Jenkins, there's just so much meat on the bone right now. You could argue that the two guys on this top 100 prospect list that have, more meat on the bone left are Walker Jenkins and Emmanuel Rodriguez. And they're both Twins outfield prospects. You just find yourself begging for more. We bring up De Paula playing 209 games over the last 2 years. Walker Jenkins' game totals are 82 and 84. Quick math, 166 games over the last 2 years. And the thing is, like, it's not like one of them is 30 games and he was dealing with a major injury. It's just nagging. And then it holds you out. Like, it's so tough, and I feel so bad for that organization that had to do the Buxton thing for 7 years and is going on like year 6 of the Royce Lewis thing. It's unbelievable the cards that fan base has been dealt. But Walker Jenkins, when he's on the field, obviously he's box office when it comes to the minor leagues.
100%. And I think it was an ankle issue that kept him for 2 months. Like that's a part where, and it's hard because you don't know what's actually going on. They're always going to be very vague, like
right. But from afar, it just shouldn't be happening to a 20-year-old.
No, not this consistently. And I know that even going back to the draft, there was some conversation just about the ability to stay healthy. And I think that's the big concern here. The thing too, though, is because the swing is so smooth. He's a great athlete for his size. I think he's capable of playing center field. The last little piece for me is, so he hits fastballs really well, but because there's not a ton of violence and bat speed yet, his B swings don't produce the damage that, give him a bigger margin for error. And he's getting pulled onto his B swings a little bit too commonly on secondaries. So like a slider or changeup or curveball, he gets onto that front side a little prematurely. And when he's losing a little bit of that tension, his B swings just aren't going to produce a lot of extra base hits. So I think that's something to monitor as well. Like he needs to definitely improve but he's lost so many reps. So it's like, how can he get so much more comfortable recognizing spin when he hasn't seen a lot of upper level spin yet? I think he will. And then as that gets better, I think you'll start to see the quality of contact improve on secondaries. But what's pretty fascinating to me is like his hard hit rate against non-fastballs this past year was 26%. Or excuse me, actually, I think that might've been a little high, 24%. His hard hit rate against fastballs was 47%. So that shows you when his weight's back, his A swing is, producing a high degree of strong batted balls, EV90 of 104 against fastballs. But when he gets pulled out onto the front side a little bit, those B swings are a significant step down quality of contact wise. And I think that's just because there's not a ton of bat speed there yet. So I think there's a little bit more to gain there. But I think a big focus for him has been getting back from injuries rather than getting stronger and adding bat speed and all these things. Because how could it be when you're always trying to work back from something?
You feel like you're playing catch up the entire year. And then all of a sudden, how do you build on something when you're just trying to solidify a bedrock?
But I throw the Yelich progression out every once in a while. I think this is another player that could really fit that Yelich progression because you have Jenkins already at AAA looking like he's, advanced enough to get up to the big leagues with the Twins.
He's the 16th best prospect in baseball. Yeah.
And he can get up to the Twins big league situation early next year. That means when he gets to the big leagues, he's still far from a finished product. That doesn't mean he won't succeed because he's got good contact skills. So he could be a guy that hits for some average, gets on base at a decent clip, plays decent in all 3 outfield spots. And look at the first few years of Yelich's career, where it's like 7 homers, but he's hitting for some average, doing all those things. And then the rest of his progression comes at the big league level. And maybe we finally see power Walker Jenkins in year 3 or 4. But he's an interesting situation where I don't even think you can say like, oh, I think I know what kind of player he is, even in year 2 of his big league career, because the way things have shook out for him in the minors, the final phase of his, and there's still a big chunk of development for him to go, is going to be at the big league level, which is rare because a lot of times guys aren't ready. That means they're not ready. Jenkins has such a unique skill set that he's potentially ready, but he's nowhere near his final product, which I think is an interesting situation for him.
I don't know if I can wait that long. We were born in the Vine era, or we grew up in the Vine era, and we're in the TikTok era now. So I don't think I can wait 3 years in the big leagues.
No. Well, you wouldn't be okay with like 280, 10 homers, plenty of doubles, walking.
Is that getting clipped out and being? Is that going to be on House of Highlights? If it's not on House of Highlights, then I don't see it.
Yeah, Jesus, I don't think he's for you. But I do
Bleacher
think he
Report,
can hit 15.
What's his height and weight? Is Bleacher Report going to tweet that out?
No, he needs another inch and another like 5 pounds. 6'4", 225 is where it's mind blown emoji. Can you believe Topps also put that out? Like I can, but
the Hyun-Suk
Jung. Oh my goodness, this Japanese pitcher.
He's 6'4", 200 pounds. 6'4", 200 pitcher, like normal pitcher.
I think it was legitimately, oh, well, here's another Dodgers pitcher who isn't from the United States. Let's engagement farm with it. I pulled his card, his auto out of 250. Maybe I should sell it now. They're artificially hyping him
Brother,
up.
that's Bitcoin right now.
Yeah, clearly. Number 15. Here's a guy that has a chance to break camp. Carson Benge for the New York Mets. He can really swing it. If you listen to the show, you know that we have been high on him. I think we're the only top 100 list to have him in it at the start of the year. He's definitely in every top 100 list now, but I don't know if anybody else has him higher than the top 15. And if they do, I agree. So he settles in at 15 because we'll talk about some of the other players coming up that have had some big league success or different things. But I keep harping on this. Do not worry about Benge's AAA numbers because he tried to play through something that clearly gave him some issues. He got hit on the wrist and he had like an 0 for 26 or 0 for 20 something. And then once he finally worked through that wrist issue, his final 7 games in AAA, he had an 1132 OPS. He walked 4 times, struck out twice, hit 2 homers, had 5 extra base hits or 4 extra base hits. He's fine. I don't think AAA is too hard for him or anything like that after what he did in high A and double A. It's 55s across the board, man. Like it's above average hit. It's above average plate discipline. It's currently average power, but I think you can clearly dream on above average power. It's above average speed. And it's above average defensive ability, potentially. I think right now he looks like an average center fielder. I think as he gets a little bit better out there, I think he's going to be an above average center fielder or plus in a corner. Remember, he's a two-way player. He can throw too. He's got a good arm. It was everything I was hoping to see from Benge this year and more. And the biggest thing is he started elevating. People are, oh, well, he doesn't pull the ball in the air enough. It's like, give him some time. He's got long levers, whippy bat speed. He'll sync things up and make it happen. It's exactly what he did. And that's why you saw him hit 15 homers, 7 triples. And remember, portion of his games in Brooklyn where the ball just dies. I think there's even more pop in there to tap into.
So I keep on coming back. I try to put myself in David Stearns' shoes. And I keep on coming back to David Stearns' boss, owner Steve Cohen, possibly saying to him, oh, should we entertain Bellinger? Should we look at a reunion with Bader or Mullins? Should we trade for Luis Robert? Like, I feel like this is where David Stearns' Milwaukee in him could say, no, just wait. Maybe give a guy a split deal. Give me 2 months to buy time. Give me a month to buy time. Hell, give me spring training to buy time. And Benge might just be the guy straight away. It seems like that's where they're going from the reports that I've read. They're plenty content with running a Tyrone Taylor out there. And when Tyrone Taylor, when Benge is ready, it's not like he's going to be denied by Tyrone Taylor. So I do think they feel pretty comfortable settling in center field until Benge gets there because they know he is the long-term and close to immediate answer.
Yeah. And you could always, depending on how things are looking, you could always go with a center fielder that you sign, you move Benge to a corner, slide some things around, and now you got a really interesting defensive outfield as well. But I think they still want to keep Nemo out there. Soto's Gold Glover, right? Or a
Gold Glove finalist, right? He didn't win one.
I mean, you just out of principle, I guess, can never take him out of the outfield. But no, I think it's a really unique spot where, to be honest, I would want to clear the runway for Benge. I think they have enough other pieces there. I think this is a guy that you got to look at and say, this is a guy that's going to help us, I think, at some point this year. And we have this caliber of player already at AAA, already shown some signs of success there. I think we can allocate this money towards pitching or other areas. The other side is, I think you can set up Benge for more success too by just sheltering him from lefties. And that's where Taylor maybe takes a short side of the platoon. He can really just focus on hitting lefties. Benge can take the bulk of the platoon, which he had an 890 OPS against last year, and just mash from there. I love the situation that they're in there because it's like you can either swing for the fences, but then you have the fallback of still a really good player and a guy that can platoon with him if needed. But I also think there's more power in the tank for Benge, and that's the part I'm really excited about. He reached exit velocities north of 111 miles per hour last year, a hard hit rate of 48%, and he is so wiry. He was a two-way player at Oklahoma State. I think as he continues to get further away from pitching and strengthen a little bit more, he still has clearly plenty of room for strength in that frame. I wouldn't rule out, close to plus power if it all comes together. So there's just so much still, I think, that could come together for him to make him even more impactful. But even as is, you're looking at 50s to 55s across the board for a guy that should debut early in the season.
Cool.
I had a question for you before we go to the next player, because he's also AL Rookie of the Year candidate. You have Benge. I was talking about this with Ryan Finkelstein, actually. You have Benge and McLean for Rookie of the Year in the NL or the field. What would you take?
For NL Rookie of the Year?
You have Benge and McLean or the field.
Can I pull up Aram Layton's top 100?
Yes. I think it's an interesting one. McLean's obviously the favorite, but then I think Benge is a really sneaky player as an offensive award. If he's playing center field for the Mets, he steals bags. He's going to do a lot of different things to fill up the stat sheet.
We're going to talk about 12 in a little bit. How much time did 12 get in AAA?
12.
In Lehigh Valley?
A good amount, like a non-negligible amount.
Like if they trade Bohm, is he there? He got 8 games.
Yeah. Okay, then it was less than I thought. But yeah,
I'll go Benge. I'll go Benge and McLean. I think that's the right bet because like the clear-cut competition is Bubba Chandler.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, you wonder where the other competition would come from, like maybe Peña, but these are 2 pitchers.
Yeah.
So give me the outfielder and the best pitcher against the field. Yeah, so I think I'd go Benge and McLean.
Yeah, I think so too, but we're going to talk about it too. There's a couple guys coming up that I think have a strong case. But next guy that I think has a pretty strong case right here is Carter Jensen.
Yeah.
Jensen, the American League, is going to be one of my favorite picks for Rookie of the Year. I probably will bet it on BetMGM for whatever, a small amount, just see what happens. But I mean, this is everything you would have wanted to see from him. And we've talked about Jensen so much this season because of what he showed from a raw power perspective. My big thing with him is he was an overstrider, and that always makes me concerned because like when you overstride, meaning like that step forward with your lead leg becomes more of a lunge than just a regular step, and that's going to pull you forward, but also it's going to cause the bat to drag behind you. You're going to get blown up at the top. You're going to get tied up inside a little bit too. It's similar to the counter rotating thing, but in a different way. It's making you drag behind, right? And your body's kind of leading the swing, and then you just don't have as much strength, and the barrel's kind of weaker behind you. He was still, when everything was on time, getting off really good swings and showing some power, but it was really hard for him to pull the ball in the air with consistency. I think it was hard for him to just get the ball in the air in general with the consistency that you wanted to see. And then he was having some challenges against, fastballs at the top, some better located stuff. And that was all things that he changed, I would say, in 2024, where you saw those improvements, but then really built on that in 2025. And in 2025, you just saw kind of everything kick up another gear and you saw the hard hit rate jump to 55%. You saw the EV90 jump to 107 miles per hour. The swing decisions got better. The defense got better to where instead of looking like a iffy defender, and he looks like he can get by and maybe even be average there. Everything you could have wanted to see came together for him, and then he did it at the big league level. And he also hit a 482-foot home run, 113 miles per hour. I've long said Carter Jensen has the most underrated raw power in the minor leagues, and now it might be some of the more underrated raw power in the major leagues.
And you pair Jensen and Caglione in that lineup in Kansas City, and they added some serious thump to a lineup that had none outside of Salvi going into the 25 season. And I'm not discrediting Vinny Pasquantino. He just hadn't shown the thump to that level.
Yeah.
The only thing that I have to say about Jensen's Rookie of the Year candidacy is how hell-bent is Kansas City on still putting Salvi behind the dish? Because if Jensen is DHing for the long term, that's going to dock him in terms of Rookie of the Year. But if he's catching consistently, this guy is absolutely a Rookie of the Year favorite, maybe the leader in the clubhouse. Salvi had 30 homers and he was a .5 win player. Yeah. So that should tell you all you got to know about Salvador Perez behind the dish right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I feel like if Carter Jensen catches 100 games in 2026, he could be a slam dunk Rookie of the Year candidate.
Yep. 100%. Because even if you grade out as a slightly below average defender, you're still going to accumulate WAR playing the catcher position and providing above average, offense there. And I think there's other components to his game that are going to continue to get better. I think the receiving is continue to get better, but this is better than plus raw power, crazy bat speed. I think the one issue is, he's not going to hit lefties that great, and that might be something that we see him maybe insulated from as well. He had a 917 OPS this past year against righties. It was like a 740 against lefties, but that number kind of dwindled at the AAA level and at the big league level. But going to demolish righties. The approach is clearly come along to where he's walking. And I mean, this is some of the more impressive bat speed you're going to see. So I think he's going to put up some crazy swings this year. I think we're going to see a lot of 110 plus EVs from him. And this is just a very, very talented player that, again, I think should get some more Rookie of the Year love. And it's going to be a big part of hopefully a better Kansas City Royals offense next year.
No doubt.
Number 13 here is Sebastian Walcott. And some may say like, oh, it's a little low for Walcott, right? And it is a little bit of a slip for him. But I feel weird saying that because like he didn't do anything wrong. I just think some other guys passed him a little bit. And there's just some still clear-cut questions. Like there's some clear strengths that he continues to tap into, but there's also still some questions, relatively speaking. That said, his upside is so immense that's why he still has a little bit of an edge over even like a Carter Jensen, who's already doing it at the big league level. Because Walcott, like if it all comes together, it's crazy, crazy power potential. It's kind of Tatis-like offensively, right? But I think there's a few wrinkles here. One, he needs to start to convert that raw power into game power. There's a big discrepancy between his average EV and his EV90, which to me says, okay, you're not making the highest degree of quality contact, or you're not making quality contact as often as you should or could. That's, I think, because of his mechanics. His swing path is flat, and I think it makes it harder sometimes to hit the ball exactly where you want to hit it on the bat consistently. I think there's a little bit, like he's a torpedo bat candidate, guy that could probably benefit from that, but still probably would just benefit from adjusting the path a little bit so that he's not taking the ball off of like the closer to the hands a little bit more and not missing the sweet spot of the bat so consistently and not hitting the ball on the ground to the degree that he does. Because again, the average exit velocity is like 87 miles per hour, where the EV90 is like 107. And that big of a gap to me says that he's not, again, finding that sweet spot and getting his A swing off as consistently as he should. If it all comes together, and we're talking about a kid at 18 years old that's popping at the time 116 plus mile per hour exit velocities. We're talking about a kid that's now played parts of 2 seasons, like 2.5 years at the AA level, and he still isn't even 20 years old until the end of spring training. There's so much to like. He has crazy arm strength, but he boots so many routine balls at shortstop. And that's the other part that's a little bit of a question for me. There's risk there, right? Okay, what if he doesn't get into the game power to the degree that you hope, and he doesn't turn into a shortstop? Now you're really fighting uphill to get to that 3+ WAR plateau at third base. Though that's kind of the worst case scenario. I think the most likely scenario is he does move off of shortstop. He does get into that game power. And now you've got a player who can be a monster at third base power-wise. It could look like Gino Suarez. I think you're hoping for more than that, but like that's what you could look for, right? So all in all, it was, I think, a step in the right direction hit tool-wise. And you saw flashes of it, like to cut the strikeout rate down the way that he did, to improve the contact rates, to cut the chase rate the way that he did. A lot of encouraging things, but still a lot of things that need to be refined for it to translate at the highest level.
So I've got a question that I posed to you when you were finalizing the top 100, but I'm going to save it for when we talk about number 12. But you gave me, the in-depth rundown of Sebastian Walcott. I'm trying to think about like what the right mid-level comp is from a production standpoint, because you mentioned it could be Tatis-like offensively if it all came together, and you're talking young Tatis, current Tatis, like it almost kind of feels like what you feel like Walcott's mid-level deal is, where it's an 810 OPS, and it's pretty good, but like the home run total should probably be higher, and the slug should probably be higher. Yeah. Tatis has left some meat on the bone over the last couple of years, but young Tatis is that prodigious future A-Rod you're talking about with Walcott if it all clicks.
If it all clicks, 100%. And I think there's more pressure on Walcott to have that click because, he's not going to be an elite corner outfielder.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, and we probably wouldn't have said that with Tatis at this time in his career, but odds are he's probably not following that path, right? So
Right.
he could turn himself into a solid third baseman, and I do believe that, but it's still going to be all about the power. The biggest thing that it boils down to for me, an average launch angle of 3 degrees on hard hit balls.
Yeah.
That path is just too flat. He's not a swing change candidate, but he's a swing adjustment candidate. And I'm encouraged by the improvements that he made to cut the strikeout rate down. I'm encouraged by the improvements swing decision wise. Right? He went from 27% K rate to, I believe, what was it last year? 19.6. And he upped the walk rate from 11% to 13%. But he's going to need, I mean, the OPS only went up like 20 something points overall. He's going to need to find more loft in that swing to be the player that he ultimately can be. But he's got time to do it, right? He's 19 years old. He's going to be 20 years old for the entirety of next season. And it's probably going to be what, a AAA? So this is his opportunity to do it. I'm a little bummed that we didn't get to see him in the fall league more than one game, which, by the way, he went 2 for 4 with a double and a walk. But, you know, I think ultimately this is a special talent if we can all come together.
Yeah.
Number 12 is Aidan Miller of the Philadelphia Phillies. And now Miller, we'll talk about the comparison here because these are very different types of players. But now the path to Miller accumulating WAR at the big leagues is just so much easier now at this point, right? He's turned himself into an above average shortstop, which is, I was skeptical of that at the beginning of his professional career. I really was. The footwork is so much better. He is so good ranging to his left. He could be a little bit better ranging to his backhand, and that's kind of the last piece for him. But he has a plus arm to compensate. It's just more about the glove work side of things. But to his left, I mean, he is silky smooth. He'll go into that slide, spinning throw. He'll throw across his body. He's really good crashing in and throwing on the run. His hands are good. The internal clock is good. He's at least an average shortstop, and I think an above average one at that. And there's some scouts out there that have put a 6 on the glove. The approach is the swing decisions are plus, and I think bordering on plus. The bat speed has always been plus, and he did a better job of converting that into gain power this past year. And it was really a tale of two halves for Aidan Miller. And that's part of the reason why we saw him make an adjustment in the beginning of his pro career, and I made a whole thread about it. And it was a slow start, and then he went nuclear. And then we got something similar this year where it was a slow start, and then he went nuclear. And I think there's just something about, and this is with challenging assignments, right? He's 20 years old at the start of the season. There's something about a player like Miller being able to make these adjustments and get better and better as he's being challenged at these new levels that I think is really encouraging as well. And why I think he's a guy that is just built to be able to, even if it doesn't all work out, survive the big leagues and be a solid contributor. But when you look at what he did up until July 1st, it was a 713 OPS up to July 1st. From July 1st onward, it was a 935 OPS. The biggest thing that stood out to me is he was able to kind of more consistently be on time and handle velocity. In that span of 58 games, he hit 402 against fastballs with an 1168 OPS, which is just video game numbers. If you go against just short by velocity, against 94 plus, he hit 425 with a 1230 OPS against 94 plus. So you're not going to beat him with velocity. So, okay, well then how do you do against spin? I think that's the last little piece where he could be just better overall production-wise, especially against changeups, where I think he barrel tips a little bit and then the path can kind of get in and out of the zone a little bit more quickly than you want to see.
Yeah.
But his swing decisions are so elite that I think he can circumvent that enough. But of course, you want to see the path get a little bit better, have him stay on the ball a little bit better. And I think that's just the last little piece here is just kind of coming off of spin. But even when he hit 180 against everything else in that span, it was a 680 OPS because he chased at 16%, against those pitch types. But that is going to be the last piece there to get that hit tool to above average. But if you're hitting fastballs to the degree that he was hitting fastballs, which by the way was also a zone contact rate of 94%, if you just hit fastballs at that clip and don't miss hangers and you don't chase breaking balls, you're going to be fine. But to reach that next level, it's just going to be a matter of more consistency in the zone against those secondaries. And that really just feels like the final piece for Miller.
Yeah. All right. So you just laid out both of them, Walcott and Miller. So the question that I texted you when you were finalizing the top 100 is, you're sitting there in Philadelphia and you are offered Sebastian Walcott for Aidan Miller straight up. You're saying no if you're Dave Dombrowski, and you said, I think I am, which sounds crazy. And I can appreciate why it sounds crazy, because I think it does too, but give me your reasoning as to why, going beyond, well, there's an easier path to him accumulating WAR. Like, it just comes to a trade value thing. One of them's 19 years old in Walcott.
Yep. And Miller's 21. But I think what it boils down to for me is, if you, let's say you pass on the opportunity for Walcott for Miller, yes, there's a world where you're looking at Walcott hitting 40 homers in the show and you're like, damn,
Right.
we had a chance for that. But I think there's a lot more scenarios where Miller is just a solid everyday shortstop. And, I always do the 1,000 simulations thing.
Yeah.
How many simulations is Walcott not hitting enough? And Miller is a 3-WAR shortstop, just defending and doing all the things that he can do. So the floor conversation's not even close because of the defensive ability. And if he plays third base, he's elite there. But then I think about the ceiling. It's not like Miller isn't some tooled up, exciting prospect either, right? We're talking about exciting bat speed. We're talking about plus speed as well. And we're also talking about a guy that in Miller that popped a 114.5 this year. Like an exit velocity, he hit a home run this year, 114.5 miles per hour off of Jaden Ham. So Aidan Miller, you can't rule out 25, 30 home runs with him either.
Yeah.
So if I can't rule out, like if I was looking at him and saying like, he's not going to break 20 home runs unless it all comes together. Then maybe I'm taking my chances on the upside of Walcott. But you got a ceiling here too with Miller. That's exciting. It's not like it's a total floor ceiling balance here. Like Miller's popping 115s essentially in his age 20 season, so 2021 season. That guy can hit 30 home runs too.
Yeah. So you think the ceilings are closer in comparison than the floors are, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And again, if it all works out, I think the production comp that you're looking at with Walcott is probably closer to like Caminero the more I think about it. But like, look at what Caminero had to do this year to turn in like a solid season from a WAR perspective.
Right. And the comp for Aidan Miller could be Jeremy Peña. And, you can have a serious conversation like, who is the better baseball player? And you can't have that conversation right now because actually you can, because Peña was really good this year.
Amazing this year.
Really good. Like,
and at shortstop.
Yeah.
So I think that's a perfect comparison, to be honest, because I think there's a lot of similarities there. And the difference is Miller's going to reach the big leagues way younger. And the leap that Peña is making in year 3, 4, he's doing that now in his later 20s because he got up so late. Miller would be doing that at like 23, 24 years old. So that's what really makes me excited. And then the last part is just Miller's swing decisions being elite, and then also turning in like 50 plus bags this year. And obviously he's not going to steal 50 bags at the highest level, but you're just getting every single complementary piece. The only thing that I think Walcott is better at is the power potential, but Miller is presently better at least getting into his power. And again, Miller, you're still got a shot at 30 bombs. So he's just one of my favorite. Like if you're in a dynasty league, I think he's a buy. I think I would trade Bohm immediately and put him at third base because he's going to get bags. He's going to do a lot of different things. If you're buying baseball cards, like I shouldn't be saying this because if I had more liquid, I would be buying his cards and I haven't yet. So, but transparency wise, I would buy those cards. I think he's a good player to buy stock in.
Liquid, the hobby. What other buzzwords you got?
Liquid. That's not even really like a card buzzword as much as just.
No, it's a good buzzword though.
I'm watching. I had the future in-laws over with CNBC on, so we were, so we had a lot of, what's the guy's name? It's not Matt. It's like the mad dog of finance.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking. It's going to come to me.
Jim
It's
Cramer?
going to come to me.
Jim
Yeah,
Cramer?
that sounds right.
Yeah. So I think I heard the word liquid like 48 times. So maybe that's playing a part into it.
Good. Speaking of liquid, go read our guy Josh Schaefer's new newsletter at Barron's. That fires me up.
Schaefer's killing it. That's the only thing non-sports that I get on my feed on
That's
X.
big.
At least if everything's going right.
Yeah.
Number 11, Bubba Chandler. Might be a prospect fatigue guy. Maybe he should have been in the top 10. It was just so hard to really push anybody else out of the top 10. Bubba, we talked about it, man. Like, I don't know what the hell the Pirates were doing, and he probably didn't either. And he just kind of threw like a guy that was frustrated that he was in AAA. Personally, it's what it looked like to me, and that's conjecture, but it's what it looked like to me because he was way better than the 5.84 ERA he put up in his final 10 AAA starts. And you know what backs that up? The 4 ERA and the 2.74 FIP that he put up in 7 big league starts, which if you just eliminate the one blow-up outing he had, it's 6 starts at a 1.59. I know you can just take the one bad start, but it's really just one bad start here. And you have 28 strikeouts versus 1 walk in the other 6 outings. So that's where I'm looking at a player that, I mean, another strong rookie of the year candidate, another guy that it's an elite fastball. It's one of the best fastballs that you got. It was 98.2 miles per hour on average. The changeup off of it is disgusting. And then that cutter slider is a great third pitch. I'd love to see him find more confidence in a fourth offering and maybe cut down that fastball usage just ever so slightly. He flashed a curveball a little bit, and I think that's a pitch that could hopefully come along for him a little bit more. But that's why evaluating pitchers is so tough. You have a freakazoid arm talent here, and like he could just emerge next year with a new pitch. And then all of a sudden, like, how does that elevate his ceiling? We'll see. But even with these 3 pitches that he's got, the fastball, changeup, slider, / cutter, whatever you want to call it, he's going to dominate hitters. And we've seen that through his strong stretches. And I think we saw it in the big leagues. Oh, aside from that one Brewers outing, which it was around the time I think the Brewers were just killing everybody.
Yeah. The only thing that I will say about Bubba Chandler is he is now, I think, going on 3 consecutive years where he's had a down month or 2.
Mm-hmm.
And aside from that, like 4 or 5 out of the 6 months have been dominant for Bubba Chandler. But in 2025, there was a month in the minor leagues. In 2024, there was a month in AA. In 2023, I think there was a month there. There's always a month. And we're not talking about Bubba Chandler like, can he be a mid-rotation starter? The answer is a clear-cut yes. The question is, can Bubba Chandler be a co-ace with Paul Skeens for the Pittsburgh Pirates? Can Bubba Chandler win the National League Rookie of the Year? The answer is yes, if he bucks the trend of the last 2-3 years. And you just don't have that question with Nolan McLean right now. And there's a much more limited sample with McLean than there is Bubba Chandler in terms of just pitching. Being a pure pitcher, McLean has a ton of tread left on his tires. Chandler, obviously, it's been a short runway with him as a pitcher exclusive, but it's been a year or 2 longer than Nolan McLean's has. So McLean, like, while his big league sample was better, also has less downside to look at there. I'm beyond looking at Bubba Chandler like, can he be a good major league starter? Because that's inarguable. Yes, he can. He could be a great one. The question is, can he be one of the best pitchers in the National League? The answer is, we'll see.
We'll see. And it's, you can't have a bad month if you're going to be one of the best pitchers in the National League, to your point. And it's interesting. You know, I'm looking at 2023. In May, he had a 9.5 ERA. In 2024, it's a small sample. He only made, 4 appearances. But in May, he had an 8.7 ERA. In 2025, it wasn't May. He actually had a 2.54 ERA. But in June, he had an 8.5 ERA. So there's just something, where that 1 month kind of sets him off or whatever, and he unravels. So it's like, can you turn the page into the next start, and can you find that consistency over the whole, the whole year? Is that last little piece? But I think what's clear here is like, he's got the fastball to bail him out. It's like get out of jail free card. But at the same time, in the big leagues, they'll clip you a little bit, right? Like if you're falling behind, they'll clip you. And I think that's going to be the last little piece here for him, is just he's going to need to locate that changeup pretty consistently, because as good as the fastball is, hitters need to respect the secondaries. And I think they do. Obviously, the stuff is good enough. but you can't allow these hitters to eliminate, that changeup or eliminate anything that starts at the knees, and go from there. In his big league outings, his fastball averaged 99. It was dominant in the zone. It got great chase at the top. The cutter slider performed pretty well as the third pitch, and the changeup was fantastic as well. He just needs to improve on the 56% strike rate on that pitch. But again, the 89 mile per hour slider, like that pitch was there for him too. So that 3-pitch mix, I think, almost guarantees him being a middle rotation arm, and then it just comes down to consistency from there as to whether he could be that number 2 or even co-ace. I think to reach co-ace territory, he needs a 4th pitch. And I might be wrong, who knows? But I think because it's 99, it's 92, and it's like 89, 90. And I just think having something more in the mid 80s that's slower, that hitters kind of takes him out of the hard and harder cadence, will be that next thing that puts him up. Like the Splinker for Skeens, I think it was different for him, but was a bridge that kind of pushed him to this just unfathomable ceiling. For Chandler, I think if there's something else, a bridge in there, or just something that's kind of different from the other 3, I think that could be what pushes him to an ace. But just execution of these 3 pitches, I think, is the difference between whether he's a 3 or a really good 2.
Just take one from Skeens. He's got like 7 of them.
Yeah, just have him teach you one.
Yeah.
But that'll do it for this episode. Again, you can follow along, read all the write-ups in the episode description. We're going to do the top 10 later on. So looking forward to breaking down the top 10 prospects in baseball. As always, thank you for listening. Look forward to talking prospects with you throughout the week. By the way, Connolly early on the Just Baseball show on either Wednesday or Thursday. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a fun interview as well. Some other fun prospect interviews coming out on the call up as well. If you missed Tyson Neighbors, go check that out. That was an awesome conversation with the Orioles former Padres prospect as well. Look forward to talking prospects with you later this week.